Good day and welcome to the Big East Men's Basketball Coaches Media Teleconference. Today's conference is being recorded. And at this time, I would like to turn the conference over to John Paquette. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thanks very much for joining us on our men's basketball teleconference. We'll have each coach on for approximately 8 minutes. After an opening statement, you can ask a question. Hit star 1 on your telephone to ask a question, and the operator will introduce you. We do have one substitution today on the call. Ed Cooley, who I know a lot of you know that is not feeling well this week. We're going to have Andre LaFleur on, the associate head coach for Providence, and that'll be right after our first coach, Greg McDermott from Creighton. And Creighton played Providence the other night, and Providence came away with a 50-48 win. Creighton now 3-2 in the Big East, 12-6 overall. Next game at DePaul on Sunday. And we have Coach Greg McDermott on the line. Greg, thanks for joining us. If you can give us a brief thought on the Providence contest and then your thoughts on facing DePaul on Sunday.
Well, the Providence game, it was cold outside in Omaha, and it was pretty cold inside as well. Both teams struggled to shoot the basketball, and I think certainly some of that had to do with the defense that was applied on both ends. I was really pleased with the way we defended. Particularly in the first half and early in the second half, and Coach Cooley's group did a great job with their length and athleticism of being disruptive. But I couldn't be more pleased with our guys' effort. We put ourselves in a position to win a game where we were not very good offensively, and that has not been the case with us this year. So even in defeat, there certainly are a lot of positives. Obviously, I'm concerned somewhat about our poor shooting numbers in conference play. I felt like we've gotten relatively good shots that are similar to what we're able to get in the non-conference portion of our schedule. We're just not knocking them down. And then you combine that with the fact that, we had Grosel and Zach Hansen saddled with foul trouble against Providence. It made it tough sledding for us. So, we lost to a very good basketball team, very well-coached team, and when the game was on the line, the best player in our league, Chris Dunn, did what you would hope your best player would do. He took over the game and made big plays down the stretch.
And can you give us a thought on DePaul, Greg?
It's a huge game for us. DePaul, in my opinion, they've been very, very competitive. I think the second half at Xavier is probably the one time where, they haven't played quite as well. But other than that, this has been a basketball team that's been in every game and just hasn't been able to finish them. And you just need to go back and when Northwestern was at full strength, they led that whole game and let it slip away in overtime. They beat a very good George Washington team at home. So anytime you got Billy Garrett, running the show, you're going to have a chance to be successful because he's one of the best point guards in our league. Does a great job, getting himself opportunities and creating opportunities for himself. So for us, sitting at 3-2, if we want to keep ourselves in the upper middle of this league somehow at the 1/3 mark through the league, we've got to find a way to go get another one on the road, and that's going to be easier said than done.
Questions for Coach Greg McDermott, hit star 1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
Take our first question from Jerry Carino with Gannett, New Jersey.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Greg, good morning. I just wanted to ask you about what are the biggest challenges in defending Chris Dunn?
Well, he's got a unique combination of he's got great size and he's got great length to go with it, and he has incredible vision. So it's not easy, and he's really improved his jump shot. He hit a huge three at 44-40, inside of 5 minutes on a game when he had shot the ball very well. So, I think he's always a threat to get to the rim. And in the past, you could maybe let him settle for jump shots and be okay with it. I think he's shooting those at a much higher clip. And then he's got the ability to make everybody around him better. And, I thought we did as good a job as anybody has done in terms of, he only had 3 assists. He only had 1 steal. And he shot a poor percentage, and he still found a way to win the game for his team. But his length, his athletic ability, and his vision make it a very difficult person to defend.
Thank you very much.
go to Joe Giuliano with Philadelphia Inquirer.
Good morning, Greg. I have pretty much the same question as Jerry, but I just wanted to ask, what are the one or two things that make Chris Dunn such a special player, above the crowd in the country?
He does everything. He's always been an elite defender, and now he's become an elite point guard on the offensive end as well, because of the fact that he can make everybody better. He can pass around you, he can pass over you. If you go under a screen now, he can stop and shoot behind it, which is something that he wasn't doing earlier in his career. So I think he's just worked extremely hard to make himself a better player, and I salute him, much like Buddy Hield from Oklahoma. My son Doug, a couple years ago, when he made the decision to come back to school, it's one thing to make the decision to come back. It's another thing to really put in the time and the effort necessary to, when you're already at an All-American level, to make yourself better. And in his case, he certainly has. He's a much better player than he was a year ago. And his decision to come back to Providence, obviously, has turned out to be the right one.
Thank you.
We'll take our next question from David Woods with the Indianapolis Star.
Yes, Coach. Your school, along with Butler and Xavier, are in your third year in the Big East. I guess what have been the biggest issues for you in transitioning? Obviously, you've got more travel and the schedule's tougher. Anything else that people might not have recognized?
I don't think so. Obviously, the travel is different, but we're all on charters anyway, so that doesn't really impact us one way or the other. I think the biggest thing, in our previous league, there were 3 or 4 teams that you knew you were going to have to hook it up every single time you were going to play them. They're going to be great games, but usually you had 2 or 3 teams in the league that if you showed up and you just kind of did what you were supposed to do, even if you weren't on top of your game, you're probably going to find a way to win. That's not the case in this league. St. John's is transitioning. It's really a total rebuild for Coach Mullen and his staff. And they've been extremely competitive. They took us down to the wire at their places. The Xavier game was into the last 2 minutes where it was anybody's game. They led at Marquette really most of that game before letting it get away at the end. So you have to have your A game, and if you don't, you're going to have a chance to get beat, and it doesn't matter who it is, whether you're Villanova on the top of the league or St. John's or DePaul, who doesn't have a win yet. Everybody's capable, and that makes this league very, very difficult.
Thank you.
Greg, we have to move on. We appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
Thanks. Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
As we said, next up, Ed Cooley, as some of you know from reports anyway, is not feeling well this week. So we have Andre Lafleur, their senior associate head coach, on the line from Providence. Providence was the winner of the game the other night at Creighton, 50-48. Friars right now 3-1 in the league, 15-2 overall, ranked 12th and 13th in their respective national polls. Andre, this is John Paquette from the conference office. Thanks for joining us. If you could give us a thought or two on the win at Creighton, and you have upcoming the game on Saturday against Seton Hall.
Good morning, John. How you doing? The win at Creighton was it was a great road win for us. There's a great atmosphere and environment to play in up there. They really pack it out. Their fans are on top of the game, very into it. For us to come in and win, under the circumstances of, Ed being a little bit ill, it showed really the toughness of the team. We weren't able to score the ball the way we're accustomed to, but we showed a lot of, strength and toughness on the defensive end, and it kept us in the game in a really tight game, against a very talented offensive team. So for us to pull that win out, with the leadership of Chris at the end, it was a very pleasing and satisfying win. We haven't scored the ball well in the last couple of games, so to come away with a win against a team like that, only scoring 50 points, was it was something for us to build on. Coming into this week's game against Seton Hall, another offensively talented team that they kind of mirror us in size with their guard play of Whitehead and Carrington. We feel that it's going to be a tough matchup for us, but we're hoping to get back into the scoring column so we can score some points, and we want to stay solid defensively against them as well.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Coach Andre LaFleur from Providence? Hit *1 on your telephone, then the operator will introduce you. *1 for questions, please.
We'll take our first question from Joe Giuliano with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Good morning, Coach. Obviously, you have a bird's eye view of Chris Dunn every day, and we all see the numbers that he puts up. But behind the scenes, what makes him a special player?
The way he cares about his teammates, and, the way he goes about his, everyday preparation. We call him an everyday guy, from on the court to off the court. He's just a high character quality kid. He's worked his butt off this year, in all areas of his game. But he also, his ability to make his teammates better by giving them confidence, not only confidence in the way he's going to play, but also he gives them confidence to go out there and compete by, making sure that they're in positions to be really good. And he's a special player. He's a rare physical talent. But now he's starting to put it together as far as, that point guard position, and his ability to make players better. I think that makes him, a lot more, efficient on the court.
Thank you, sir.
Take our next question from David Woods with the Indianapolis Star.
Yes, Coach. I was wondering if you could reflect a little bit about your first meeting against Butler. You guys had a 56-point second half, and obviously didn't have any trouble scoring in that game at all. Is there any kind of a danger once you've beaten a team on the road, perhaps a slight letdown? Well, we beat this team on the road, we can certainly beat them at home.
And every game is an individual battle. We come into each game with a preparation that's independent of the last. I mean, we'll take some of the things that we did well. Of course, we shot the ball extremely well. We hope to do that again, but we can't expect to do that. We're going to go into the next game against Butler. I mean, they're one of the most efficient offensive teams now that Dunham is back scoring. And Roosevelt is one of the best, we feel, one of the best college players as far as his ability to, to will his team to win. So, in particular, we were shooting the ball really well. We hope to get back, into that kind of shooting rhythm because we feel like we have some talented outside shooters. But Rodney Bullock's 5 threes. We had Drew Edwards come in and spark us with 2 threes. Those are things that in that game were very important. I wish we could book it in for every game, but the defensive end is where it's going to start. Always defensive rebounding.
You mentioned Roosevelt Jones, and that kind of brought up the thought that I'd had. No one considers him an NBA prospect because of his really doesn't shoot from outside. Would you consider him a possible college All-American player? I mean, just as a college player, he's almost has some of his production almost is close to Dunn's.
Well, as far as his value to his team, and I would say definitely he'd have to be in consideration for that. I mean, he's pretty much the catalyst of their success. He's a very hard to play against offensively. He plays on the defensive end. He's a veteran. He's a very smart player. I've definitely put him in that echelon of players that are so valuable to their team that he should be up there in the mention.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Andre, we appreciate your time. We certainly hope Ed feels better, but it's good talking with you today. Thanks.
Thank you too, John.
All right. Again, that's Andre LaFleur, the senior associate head coach, filling in for Ed Cooley, who's a little under the weather. And next up, we have DePaul and Coach Dave Lado. And DePaul's last game was Tuesday against Xavier. Xavier came away with an 84-64 win. Blue Demons back at home on Sunday against Creighton. DePaul now 6-11 overall. Dave, thanks for joining us on the call. If you can give us a brief thought on the Xavier contest and then your thoughts on facing Creighton on Sunday.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, coming off of that game Tuesday evening, we thought in their building against one of the best teams in America, who has only one blemish on the season, you're going to have to bring your A game in order to have an opportunity to win. And I think as most of the games this year, I thought our guys from a competition level, we competed hard and we played hard, and that's the first thing you need to give yourself an opportunity. And but the things that you have to do, and we did not do as well, as to play as smart as we needed to do with some flow on either offense or defense, and miss assignment here, miss assignment there against a high quality team who's as balanced as they are, isn't a great formula for success. So that's what happened over the course of the end of the first half and into the second half, and allowed them to stretch the lead out. But credit to Chris and that group; they're playing as well as I've seen most any team play this season, because it looks like they're great camaraderie on the court and share the ball very well, and are in sync defensively and really do a good job on the backboard. So, obviously it wasn't a great night for us as we move forward and prepare ourselves for Sunday. It's a little bit of the same type of atmosphere in terms of our preparation and what we need to talk about for Creighton, who is one of the more explosive teams in the country, not just the Big East. And the typical with Coach McDermott, was a really, really good in the skill department from 3-point range, and then in and around the basket, and shoot a very high percentage. And I think Watson has made such a big difference in their team this year. And just watching them, he gives not only getting guys shots, but just giving them confidence, and just a point guard's point guard, and how you need to direct your team, both mentally and physically. So, obviously be a great challenge to try to slow them down from what they've been able to do thus far in the season. And so we'll obviously keep preparing for it.
Questions for Coach Dave Leto. Hit *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
Take our first question from John Fanta with Big East Digital Network.
Coach, good morning. He scored 19 points against Butler on January 5th in his last two games of just 7. What do you think it is that you guys need to do to keep Tommy Hamilton the fourth going, to get him consistently scoring here in conference play?
It's something that we look at, we talk about, try to get him going early, try to put him in positions where he can utilize his skills. Obviously, he's a real good perimeter shooter, so try to get him a shot or two there early, and then get him in the post to try to get him touches. And it's you used the word before I could use the word. It's just the consistency that all of us see for him and for all of us, in that sometimes it may be that we don't get him when we need to, or sometimes when we get him the ball, he's not quite in position and ready to do certain things that he needs to do and he's good at. And so it's just finding that balance to keep him consistent in what we're trying to look for with him. So is everything, we're a work in progress, but we've got so many other things that we need to do more consistently and well to get ourselves over the hump and get a win, and Tommy obviously is one part of that.
And Coach, you've had two possession games here in Big East play last Sunday. You've just come up short. Is there something that you look at in the second half of the games, late game execution, that you think needs to be adjusted?
Well, it's all of the above, and the way I kind of look at late game situations is, the things that you could have and should have done before you got to that would hopefully prevent you from being in a position where you have to make a stop or have to make a basket. But I understand this league is going to be about close games, because both teams are going to play really hard and try to win. And I think to answer your question, one of the differences that I've noticed, with Butler I saw it, with Georgetown I saw it, obviously we didn't get to that situation with Xavier, is that, teams that have won and are used to winning, usually make plays because they're in a level of comfort, in late game situations. And we have not done that in those situations as of yet. But we still feel like we're growing and we're learning and we're getting in a place where if we keep putting ourselves in that position, then we won't repeat bad history, but we'll make new history with that. So, it's something that we talk about. It's something we work on in practice about, execution more than anything, and not worrying about time, score, or anything. It's just, hey, can we execute this defensive assignment when we need to get a stop and a rebound, and can we execute on the offensive end to get the right shot for the right person at that right time? So it continues to be something that we look at and we work on.
Good luck on Sunday.
Thank you.
Take our next question from Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hi, Dave. Hey, Dave, when you were coming in to take this job, you knew there was some work to do to turn the program around, but how hard is it to come in and change the culture of a program that's been down for a while? And what are some of the ideas you have of doing that?
Yeah, I don't know if I use the word easy versus hard or anything. It's work, and work it entails a lot of different things, and a culture change is not as simple as you get in the gym and you require guys to work hard, you blow a whistle and things go your way. There's so many other things that happen within the framework of your team, the locker room, and understanding how you have to conduct yourself every day. There's ancillary things outside of the basketball department and basketball office that are university-wide or community-wide that have everything to do with creating that environment of winning. And so, it's not something, and I saw a great quote yesterday from Seth Greenberg about, time and patience. And that's the one thing that I have to check myself on a lot, is because I want it to be done and I want it to be done yesterday. But we have to give it some time. We have to be patient, starting with me, and knowing that, sometimes you have to go through, these kinds of times to get to the place where you want to go. And you got to remain resilient. You got to remain confident, and you got to be focused on what you want to have happen within this program. And so I try not to look, at anything past yesterday and anything more forward than tomorrow, and just live and conduct this program in the moment that we need to get us to where I know we'll be. But, what has and has not happened over the past, 5, 6, 7, 8 more years, it's not anything we can control. It's just something we can work on being better at.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Thank you.
Dave, we're out of time. We have to move on. We appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, that's DePaul's next game is Sunday at home against Creighton. Next up, we have Butler and Coach Chris Holtman. Butler's last game was this past Sunday against Villanova. Villanova won 60-55. They're getting ready to host St. John's on Saturday, noon game on Fox Sports 1, and Coach Chris Holtman's on the line. Chris, thanks for joining us on the call. If you would like to give us some thoughts from this week, and then your thoughts on facing St. John's on Saturday.
Well, we obviously played a very good Villanova team, and I think we had some good moments and some good stretches of play, but just need to get a lot better in a lot of different areas. So it's our challenge right now. It's what we're trying to do. I think St. John's is a team that presents great problems with their length and their athleticism and their versatility. They play really hard. They play together. They're a talented group. So we're going to have our work cut out for us, and hopefully we'll have a couple days of preparation here to get ready for a good St. John's team.
Questions for Coach Chris Holtman? Hit *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
Take our first question from Jerry Carino with Gannett, New Jersey.
Early morning, Chris. What are some of the biggest challenges of dealing with Chris Dunn on both sides of the ball?
Well, I think, that's it. You said it. Both ends. He's dynamic, really, and the game changer on both ends. And I don't know that, I don't know that there's a more complete and dynamic player on both ends in college basketball than Chris. So, he can change the game with his ability to kind of get steals and deflect passes and cover ground defensively, and then obviously he's a load to keep in front when he has the ball in his hands late. So, he's a special talent.
Thanks a lot.
Again, to ask a question of Coach Chris Holtmann, hit *1 on your telephone, and then the operator will introduce you. *1, please, on your telephone. Hang on just a second, Coach.
We'll take our next question from John Fanta with Big East Digital Network.
Coach, you've had to go through a really tough early portion of this Big East schedule. How do you think your guys have handled some of the tough times early on, and what do you think needs to change going forward, if there's one thing that you really are trying to focus on?
Yeah, we'll see, John. How I think we'll see how we respond. I do think that every game in the Big East is hard. Every game is challenging, and every game presents great challenges. So, while some of the teams that we played kind of have a number by their name, we know that every game is a big time challenge in this league. I wish that there aren't teams that you can play poorly against in this league and beat. That's just the facts. That's the case for us. So, we don't look at it anything other than it's our job to try to improve and play more quality possessions than what we did last time out. And that's really our challenge. And a lot of that for us comes on the defensive end in rebounding the ball defensively. That's where we've struggled the most. But we have struggled at times offensively as well. So, there's a lot ahead of us for hopefully to improve on. We've had some really good moments of good play, but not long enough stretches of quality play.
Thanks.
Sure.
Do we have any other questions for Coach Chris Holtmann, please? Chris, looks like we're good. Thank you very much for joining us on the call. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
We are a couple minutes ahead of schedule right now. Chris Mullen from St. John's is next, and we'll have him on in a couple of minutes. Our next call is 2 weeks from today, and can give you also a couple of notes. 4 teams: Villanova, Xavier, Providence, and Butler have all been ranked over the last 6 straight weeks. Villanova 6 and 7 in the AP and USA Today. Xavier 7 and 8. Providence 12 and 13. Butler 23 in both polls. We are dialing out to Coach Chris Mullen, and he is next on the schedule. After Chris Mullen from St. John's, we have Kevin Willard of Seton Hall. No games in the Big East on Thursday and Friday. 4 games scheduled on Saturday. Villanova at St. John's. Villanova at Georgetown on CBS at 1 o'clock, and then there's a triple header on FS1. And that is St. John's at Butler at noon, followed by Xavier at Marquette at 2, Seton Hall at Providence at 4:30. St. John's was one of the teams that played last night. Georgetown won the game at the Garden 93-73. St. John's now 0-5 in the league, 7-11 overall. And again, we appreciate you hanging on with us. We're dialing out, trying to connect with Chris Mullen. In the RPIratings.com, overall, all schools, Villanova's number 1 and Xavier's number 2. And again, if we can't connect right now with Coach Mullen, we'll see if we can make it a quick adjustment here. Okay, and I think we'll be able to come back to Coach Chris Mullen in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, we're able to go with Kevin Willard at Seton Hall. Seton Hall right now 2-2 in the Big East, 12-4 overall, getting ready to go to Providence for a game on Saturday. Kevin, thanks for joining us on the call. If you could give us some thoughts on facing the Friars, and then we'll open up for questions.
Yeah, obviously a great challenge for us going up to Providence. They've played really well at home, and obviously have two of the best players not only in the conference but in the country, in Dunn and Bentile. They're playing really good basketball, really playing well defensively, and it's going to be a good challenge for us. And hopefully it doesn't snow. We can get up there okay.
Questions for Coach Kevin Willard? Hit star 1 on your telephone, please. Operator will introduce you.
We'll take our first question from Jerry Carino with Gannett, New Jersey.
Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Jerry.
About Chris Dunn, I'm sure you've been watching all the film of him. What have you seen in his game compared to years past? How has he sort of gotten even better, if that was possible, on both ends of the floor?
Man, I think one of the most impressive things about him defensively is he doesn't foul. I mean, he's only got 10 personal fouls in 4 Big East games, so he's able to affect the game. Without fouling. I mean, he gets his hands, he guards the ball really well. He's physical. I think he really disrupts offensive extremely well, and he does it without fouling. It's not like you can go after him. You're going to put him on the bench because it just doesn't happen. And then offensively, I think, he's shooting the basketball so well, with a lot of confidence, where teams used to be able to kind of go under his pick and rolls and try to play him soft. and make him shoot from the outside. You just can't do that anymore. He's really worked hard, and the staff of Providence done a great job with him of really getting his jump shot to be, extremely reliable.
Second question for you. Derek Gordon, what has he brought to the table on and off the court, Kevin, even compared to maybe what you expected when you brought him in?
Yeah, Derek's been great for us, Jerry. I mean, he's brought a great level of maturity to a very young basketball team. He kind of understands the daily grind of college basketball and doing a great job in the locker room trying to get our guys to understand what they need to bring each game. And on the court, he's just given us great energy, really good defense. He's picked up our defensive level tremendously, where we've struggled in the past. He's really helped us. And offensively, he gives us a different dynamic. He gives us a guy that can drive, get to the rim. He's been getting to the free throw line at a pretty good clip. So, overall, it's been an unbelievable addition for us, and I couldn't be happier to have him.
Thanks, Kevin.
Other questions for Coach Kevin Willard of Seton Hall? Hit star 1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
Take our next question from Daniel Giuseppe with Rivals.
Kevin, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Kevin, you started out the season great. You've lost the last 2 games. You've had a week of rest. Has this week come at a good time for you, or would you rather gotten right back on the court?
No, I still, we're playing good basketball. We lost at Villanova, which everybody seems to do over the last 19 years. And we ran into a really good Creighton team. We played Villanova Wednesday night. Didn't get back till late, and they're a tough team to play on short preparation. But I think the week's been good. We've had a good week of practice. Guys have gotten back to class and into a good routine. So we're 2-2. We're kind of right where we're supposed to be at this time.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin.
Take our next question from Kevin McNamara with the Providence Journal.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
Can you just talk about mentally coming off a week off? I know that's probably the previous question, but has it been, you look at it more as an opportunity? I look at your next 3 games; they're absolutely brutal. Or have you used the time, positively?
Well, you really know how to get a guy in a good mood, Kevin. Thanks. No, it's been a good week. It really has. I mean, as a team, I still think we're in a really good situation where we are with our record. Our guys have played really hard and really well. It's been a good week. We've enjoyed having kind of time to practice and get back to some fundamentals and get back. When you play the first 4 games and they're kind of bunched on top of each other, you don't get to spend as much time on you as you do the other opponent. And I think our guys have enjoyed getting back to individual instruction and getting in the weight room and practicing without having to prepare for somebody each day. Obviously, we know the road ahead of us. I don't think there's any easy stretches in this league, but obviously playing the top 3 RPI teams in a row is going to be difficult for us. But it's a good challenge, and I think the week's been good for us.
And then just Providence specifically, I'm sure you've watched the Creighton game already. Do you just shrug off a game like that where both teams offensively just really, really struggle?
I think you got to look at it the other way. I thought both teams played terrifically defensively. I thought both teams did a really good job of taking away, really taking away certain strengths from both teams. I thought Dunn did an unbelievable job on Maurice Watson. He absolutely killed us, and I thought Dunn did a really good job of using his length and his size to kind of keep Watson from hurting them. And I think Creighton has really developed. Even though Grossell got in foul trouble, I thought their length and their size bothered Providence a little bit. So I think both teams played really elite defense, and I thought it looked like an old school classic Big East game where both teams were throwing haymakers and defended and rebounded, and I thought it was a lot of fun to watch.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, we appreciate your time, and we appreciate you jumping in a couple minutes early. Thanks.
No problem.
All right. Okay. We're still trying to hook up with Chris Mullen of St. John's, so we're still working on that for another minute or two here. And we appreciate your patience. Hang on with us, please. We appreciate your patience. Had to shuffle the schedule a little bit today. As we mentioned earlier, St. John's played last night at the Garden. Georgetown came away with a 93-73 win. And we appreciate your patience. Again, Marquette Steve Wojciechowski's due in a couple of minutes if we don't have hang with us just a second. Okay, sorry for the struggle with St. John's today. We will try to have Chris Mullen on at the end of the call. And then we'll try to do that.
Hello?
And now we're going to move on to Marquette and Coach Steve Wojciechowski. Marquette was one of the teams that played last night. They were at Villanova. Villanova came away with an 83-68 win. Marquette back at home against Xavier on Saturday. Marquette's 2-3 in the league, 12-5 overall. Steve, thanks for joining us on the call. If you could give us a brief comment on last night's game and then your thoughts on facing Xavier on Saturday.
Obviously, we're in the middle of a very challenging week playing two of the top teams in the country. Villanova, especially at home, with their veterans and their ability to shoot the ball and the ability to attack off the dribble, present a lot of different challenges. And I thought our guys overall did a good job. But you have to put 40 minutes together in order to win in a tough place like that. As we look forward to Xavier, I think Xavier is one of the teams in the country that can win a national championship. They have great depth, experience, a wealth of talent, obviously really well coached, and I think they're one of the most physical teams in the U.S.
Questions for Coach Wojciechowski? Hit *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you. *1 for questions, please.
Take our first call from Shannon Russell with the Cincinnati Enquirer.
Hey, Coach. How is Jawan Johnson doing after his injury, and is there a timetable for his return?
Yeah, he's day to day. I think he's made improvements every day, but we monitor his status every day, and we're hoping to have him back for Saturday, but it all depends on how he's feeling today. Obviously, we didn't get in to real late last night, so I've not seen him this morning to know how he's feeling.
And then just one more question. Henry Allenson has obviously made a huge impact in just 17 games. Are there areas in which you still want to see improvement in his game?
Yeah, I mean, Henry has had a terrific year. He's been obviously a very key player for us, but he's still young and he's still gaining experience, and he's a guy that can hurt you in a lot of different ways. We have to figure out ways to get him the ball closer to the basket and then work himself out. But he's a really good kid to coach and obviously made a tremendous impact on our team and program.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Reed Forgrave with Fox Sports 1.
Hey, Wojo. Curious about with Henry. You obviously knew his game pretty well coming in. If there have been things about his game that have surprised you since either since he got on campus or since the season started in November?
Well, we knew coming in he was a really talented player with great versatility. The thing you don't know until a kid gets on campus is his ability to do it on a day-to-day basis, especially as a young player. I think he's had really good consistency for a freshman. There's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders and our other freshmen' shoulders. And I think overall they've done a really good job in handling that. And, that more than the talent and what he can do from a basketball standpoint is an unknown until you get with the kid on a day-to-day basis. But like I said, he's a very good kid to coach. I think he's got a passion and a hunger to be an outstanding player. And, he's taken on a lot of responsibility for our team, and we've asked a lot of him, and, he's delivered.
Cool. Thanks, Coach.
We'll next go to Kevin McNamara with the Providence Journal.
Yes, Steve, I have a Villanova question kind of coming off last night. You guys obviously played them really tough. We're in good position, and it seems as if Villanova has kind of worn out their last three opponents, and that they play a little more with more consistency than their opponents have. Does that just speak to maybe how good they are defensively? Obviously, they get an awful lot of credit with their outside shooting and scoring, but can you just speak to their kind of defensive toughness?
Yeah, they're a very tough team, and they're a very experienced team in some key spots. I really admire their older players. Those are guys who have been in a number of big games and won big games. And, the older guys can sustain a high level of effort throughout the course of a game. And, I think they wore us down at times. And, a lot of it has to do with our older guys. They've just been through it. And so the mental, emotional, physical fatigue doesn't bother an older player like it may a younger player.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll next go to Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Henry has grabbed, obviously, most of the attention from your freshman class this year, but could you talk about Cheatham's play and how he's progressed during the year?
Yeah, I think Haney has had an outstanding freshman year, and obviously Henry deserves the attention he gets. But I think Haney's had a terrific freshman year. He's constantly improving. He's got a unique ability to break down a defense off the dribble and finish. I think he's really going to be a terrific player for us and has had a terrific year that has been overshadowed in some respects.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
We'll take
one more question from Coach Wojciechowski. Sorry.
That question comes from Reed Forgrave with Fox Sports 1.
Hey, sorry, Wojo. Just one more thing on Henry. I was curious, when you talk about his day-to-day, how he comes in and works, are there any players from your Duke days that he reminds you of as far as the way he approaches the game of basketball?
The one guy who, when I was at Duke as a freshman, had a maturity about his preparation on a day-to-day basis was Luol Deng. I thought he was mature beyond his years in terms of really valuing the everyday, bringing it every day. whether it's practice or a game, and I think Henry has some similarities to him.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Coach, we're about out of time. We appreciate talking with you again, and thanks, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
And we are trying to reach out to Coach John Thompson III from Georgetown.
I'm here.
And we have Coach John Thompson III from Georgetown. The Hoyas played last night at the Garden, 93-73 win over St. John's, and they're at home on Saturday against Villanova. Georgetown right now, second place in the Big East, 4-1, 11-6 overall. Coach, thanks for joining us. If you can give us a brief thought on last night's game and then your next one's with Villanova.
Last night, I guess the win was kind of indicative of how we have to win, meaning we have to get contributions on any given night from multiple people, and I think we had multiple people step up last night and aid in our victory. And then now we got Nova on Saturday, and Nova's Nova. It's Georgetown, Villanova, and it's going to be a rough game.
Questions for Coach Thompson? Hit *1 on your telephone, please.
Take our first question from Gary Schmitz with the Florida Times Union.
Yes, thank you, Coach. I know I'm a little bit behind the curve here, but we're the hometown paper for Bradley and Hayes, and I wanted to know if you what was the turning point for Bradley in going from his time from as a freshman, sophomore, junior to what he's been able to contribute this year?
I think it's been a gradual progression. I've said multiple times this year that, Bradley is a worker, and Bradley's worked extremely hard. Being a hometown paper, he really only played 1 year in high school.
Yep.
And just had to learn how to play the game. And he is someone that he cares. He cares about Georgetown University. He cares about Georgetown basketball. And he's done everything. He's worked extremely hard. And, now he's getting the opportunity to play this year. And, he's the type of kid that you want to have success just because of his commitment, not only to himself, but to this program.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Joe Giuliano with Philadelphia Inquirer.
Good morning, John. Just wanted to ask you about Jesse Govan and the development he's made, and how pleased are you with the progress he has made to this point?
Very pleased. He's just starting to scratch the surface. He's going to be a major force in this league, and he's just starting to get there. He's a big kid that has good touch, good feel. He can finesse you or beat you up. And so, he went through what I will call, or he's still going through, the normal adjustment period that freshmen go through. Everyone wants to come in and have your freshmen just be superstars from day one, but he's going through the adjustment period. But and now the clouds are now starting to part a little bit for him, where he's not thinking as much and just playing, and you see that in his improved production.
And getting over to Villanova for a second, Josh Hart has been pretty much their most consistent player this year. What impresses you most about him when you see him on film and the improvement he's made from the past 2 years to now?
Well, let me just say, when you talk about Josh Hart, the conversation probably should begin and end with just how hard he plays. I mean, he plays as hard as any person in college basketball. He gives 110% on every possession. And that's his biggest asset. Now you couple that with the fact that he clearly has put in time over the last couple of years, and his shot is much improved. But at the end of the day, just his work ethic and his caring, and just how hard he plays is his biggest asset.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Our next question comes from David Woods with the Indianapolis Star.
Yes, Coach. I'd like to ask you about Butler senior Roosevelt Jones. No one projects him as a professional prospect, but it seems like would you consider him among the All-America candidates in college basketball? I mean, just as a productive college player, he seems to be able to do about everything.
let me just be honest about Roosevelt Jones. I wish I was not coaching. I wish he was in another league. He is, as a fan, as a basketball fan, probably the most fun players in the country for me to watch. I love watching that kid play. I sat down, this is a true story, sat down about a week ago with my son, who's in the 9th grade, watching Roosevelt Jones clips and tapes, saying you need to do what this, try to do what this kid does. For someone where you want to pick apart what he can't do and say, well, he's not that athletic and he can't shoot past such and such a point on the court. You overlook just what a force he is, and I love watching him play. And so, in terms of future prospects, I mean, that'll sort itself out. I know at the end of the day, he's willed his way through every situation. I'm not one to sit here and say he's not a pro prospect.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
We'll next go to Eric Watkins with VUSports.com.
Good morning, Coach. As you're scouting Villanova in preparation for Saturday, what aspect of their offensive game are you most focused on with your defensive game plan?
But I don't think you can focus on one part because I think their offensive arsenal is complete. They can score, they can play any kind of way, fast, slow. They can score inside, they can score outside. They get quote unquote garbage baskets. And so I don't think that you can focus on one thing. Well, the reason that they're so good is because both offensively and defensively they're a very complete team.
Thank you, Coach.
We'll next go to Henry Clay with CBS Radio Sports, Philadelphia.
My question's been asked. Thank you very much. Good luck, Coach.
Thank you, Henry.
Next, we'll go to John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Coach, on this call just a couple weeks ago, you talked about the fact that you're looking for leadership on the defensive end, that you want to see communication improve. Have you seen that?
I've seen improvement, yes. Are we at the level where we need to be? No. We still need to keep moving in that direction, but without a doubt, there has been improvement.
And then what do you think about on Saturday? Daniel Shefu has been really, really good for Villanova thus far this season. You've got size on your side. What do you think the key is to keeping him contained? Because it seems like when he's going, he gives Villanova a different dimension.
Well, you have to match his intensity. You look at how hard he goes after rebounds, and a lot of his opportunities he creates for himself. And hitting the boards and filling the lanes, and then when they go to him on the block, he's big and strong and can go over both shoulders. So, but you have to match his intensity.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck, Center.
And we need to move on. Thank you very much for your time, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Coach Chris Mack of Xavier. We're going to try to get Coach Mullen on at the end of the call. If not, we'll give you some contact information for Steve Dombrowski of Seton Hall, of St. John's. Xavier ranks 7th in the AP, 8th in UP and USA Today this week. And we are 15. The Musketeers are 15-1 overall, 3-1 in the Big East. Their last game was on Tuesday, beating DePaul 84-64. And their next game is at Marquette, 2 o'clock Eastern start on FS1. And we are reaching out to him now. After Chris Mack from Xavier, we'll have Jay Wright of Villanova. We are trying to reach Chris Mack of Xavier. She said Xavier at Marquette on Saturday, then home against Georgetown and Seton Hall before going to Providence on the 26th. That's their next 4 games. Okay, if we can't get Chris Mack in the next minute or two, we'll try to go Jay Wright and then come back with Chris Mack. Sorry, we've had to rework our schedule a little bit today on the run. May try to come back with Jay Wright now, or go with Jay Wright now and come back with Chris Mack. So we're going to go with Coach Jay Wright of Villanova. And as we said earlier in the call, Villanova played last night, beat Marquette 83-68 at the Pavilion. Wildcats are going down to the Verizon Center for a Saturday game at Georgetown, CBS telecast at 1 o'clock. Jay, thanks for joining us on the call. If you could give us a thought on last night's game against Marquette and then Saturday's contest against Georgetown.
Thanks, John. Another tough Big East battle last night. Very physical game. Marquette played extremely well. We started well, and great credit to them. They just kept coming, and took the lead going into the half. And I thought the second half we really played well. I think it's one of those games. If you're at home, you got a chance to win that. If we were on the road, the way they kind of took it to us at the end of the first half, we might not have been able to recover. And we got another tough one coming up on the road at Georgetown. They're playing outstanding
I think John's just done a great job with that team. Got a lot of new pieces, and I think what we saw early in the year was just them getting it together, and I think they're playing great basketball right now.
Questions for Coach Jay Wright of Villanova? It's *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
First, go to Reed Forgrave with Fox Sports 1.
Hey, Jay. Two questions for you. One is with Henry Ellenson. I know he didn't have his best game last night, but I'm curious, in scouting him and in seeing him in person, what surprised you about his game, and what do you think the ceiling is? I don't know if there's like an NBA comparison for this kid.
How you doing, Reed? It's funny you say that he didn't have his best game, because after the game I looked at the stats, and it was 12 points, 8 rebounds, and I was shocked because he just puts pressure on your defense all the time. I would have really thought he had like 20 and 12, because you constantly have to be aware of him. Anytime we doubled him, he found the open man. Anytime we didn't box him out, he got the offensive rebound. He just defensively, he moves his feet on the perimeter. He's got size inside. I think he's as complete a player as a freshman in terms of being prepared for the NBA as I've seen. He's got the size, he's got the body, he's got the skill, he's got the intellect, he competes. Dirk Nowitzki would be the guy that I would compare him to, in terms of his ceiling. I was really, really impressed. And when you look at 12 and 8, and then after the game, and you realize what an impact he had on the game, he just getting 12 and 8, you realize how good he is.
The second question was about Josh Hart. This kid JT3 was super complimentary about his work ethic, how hard he plays. And I'm curious, is that something that you saw from him when you were recruiting him? Is that something that has really jumped out this year where he's just taken to the next level?
Well, no, we definitely saw his work ethic. One of the things that we noticed, in AAU ball was he played with a lot of great players, and he was the guy that did all the dirty work. And then on his high school team at Sidwell Friends, he was the leader. He was the leading scorer, leading rebounder. He was the guy in open gyms that had to set the tone. So we, in evaluating him, we really felt like we were getting a great player, and maybe didn't have the name of all the other guys when we got him, but we thought we were getting the best guy.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy.
And we'll next go to David Woods with the Indianapolis Star.
Yes, good afternoon, Coach. NBA prospect, college All-American are not necessarily the same thing. Given that, would you consider Roosevelt Jones an All-America caliber college player?
That's a great point. Yeah, definitely. Some guys, obviously I'm not an NBA guy, so I'm not an expert on who's worthy of the NBA. And one of the things about the NBA is teams have different styles, and different guys fit different types of teams. If I were to pick an NBA team for Roosevelt Jones, I'd pick the San Antonio Spurs. I just feel like a team like that, all the qualities he brings to the game, they would find a way to make it work. But when you look at just who impacts a college game and who in a college career is one of the great ones, I would definitely count Roosevelt Jones in there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from Joe Giuliano with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Hello, Jay.
Hey, JoJo.
Georgetown, I think there were some surprises in the non-conference season. They lost some games that people would normally consider winnable at home. What has contributed, as far as what you've seen on film, to their improvement in the Big East, where they're 4-1 and seem to be playing like Georgetown again?
Yeah, I think you put that well. I think that they are playing like Georgetown right now, just like everyone expected. And what I saw was just early, just a lot of new pieces and a lot of young guys taking on leadership roles, and it's similar to us, Joe, with our junior class. Those guys learning how to be starters and being counted on. I kind of felt the same way about Georgetown. Some of the younger guys, sophomores, like really being counted on, and adding a freshman to the starting lineup, and even Smith Rivera being the man, and having all these young guys around. You just got to figure that out. And it looks like you got to figure out what's our identity going to be, how we're going to do this together. And it looks like they have figured it out.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from Steve Pivovar with Omaha World Herald.
Good morning, Jay.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, what do you think your team learned from this couple losses that you had in December that has kind of benefited them now?
That's an interesting question, Steve, because I think those games we played great opponents. I think Virginia and Oklahoma are two of the best teams in the country. But I think on those nights, we might have lost those games even to lesser teams. One game was a neutral site in Hawaii, and I just thought our guys did not block out all that was going on around them. We got a little bit caught up in the trip, and then played a great team, so we got hammered. And I think we learned how to concentrate, regardless of what's going on around us. And then the Virginia game was, our first real tough road game, and I don't think we went in there tough enough in terms of rebounding and playing defense. And we really got beat up on the boards, and we put them on the foul line, which happens sometimes when you're on a road. But we did it by just not being really dialed in defensively. We played great offensively, so we could have maybe even lost to some lesser teams, but it was definitely good lessons for us in both games.
Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome.
And we'll next go to Eric Watkins with VUSports.com.
Good afternoon, Coach. Could you first please provide a quick how's it going? Please provide a quick update on how Daniel Ochefu is doing with his injury from last night.
You know what? He's getting evaluated today as we speak, so I do not have an update right now. But after the game, it was diagnosed as a deep bruise in his buttocks. So one of those things that our trainer said is very painful, and he said probably today he would not be able to practice, and then we'll see how he feels on Friday.
Okay, thank you. And last year, Georgetown really jumped on you early out of the gate in the game in D.C. How do you think you might approach this game a little bit different, maybe mentally at the start? And if they apply similar kind of suffocating defense on the perimeter, how do you think your team this year is better equipped to respond?
Well, as you know, we try to approach every game the same way, but you're right. We did not, kind of like I was talking to you earlier, Steve from Omaha, that we did not go in there ready defensively or on the glass on the road to play that game. And I think we've had a couple of road games now. I think we're a little bit better equipped to go out and start the game, and that's what we're going to try to do against Georgetown. Understand how early a team can jump on you when they're at home. And their suffocating defense always bothers us. We just got to be smart about making them work and our shot selection because they can force you into contested shots because they have such great length.
Okay, we'll take one more question for Coach Jay Wright.
Well, let's go to Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hey, Jay.
Sean, how are you, buddy?
Good, man. How are you? Hey, you mentioned before about Josh, that you always saw his work ethic, and so you knew, how hard he was, working at his craft. But do you feel like maybe he snuck up on opponents this year a little bit, and maybe he's like one of the quieter stars in the league this year?
You know what? I would be surprised if he snuck up on opponents because he was the MVP of the Big East tournament last year. He really came on at the end of the year. I'm sure coaches, I'm sure coaches aren't surprised, but he's just one of those guys that, he wasn't a starter last year, and we had so many great names in our league, with Chris Dunn and Ryan Arcidiacono and Ellenson coming in, and all the Xavier guys. We just got so many great players that I think, he just wasn't in that conversation early. But I do think, Smith Rivera, all these guys. I do think he's getting in there now. I think that's what you're alluding to. And when guys like you start talking about him in those circles, that's, I think that's where he belongs.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
You got it, buddy.
Jay, we got to move on, and we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, John.
Thanks. And now we're coming back to Chris Mack and Xavier. And as we said earlier, Xavier played on Tuesday, beat DePaul 84-64, going to Marquette on Saturday. Musketeers 3-1 in the league, 15-1 overall. Chris, thanks for joining us. You can give us a brief comment on the win on Tuesday, and then your thoughts on facing Marquette.
Well, I thought our team played very hard defensively, which was something that we really needed to get back to, wanted to get back to, and I thought we were locked in from the start. I think DePaul's got a few very talented upperclassmen that if you're not ready to play, they've proven in their first 4 games, despite losses, that they can hang with anybody. And I thought our guys did a really good job in responding the way we needed to. We've got, in my opinion, coming up with Marquette, maybe the most improved team in our conference from a year ago. They have one of the best players in Henry Ellenson in the Big East, who's only a freshman, a guy that certainly everybody in our conference already knows about, and we're going to see firsthand on Saturday. But they like to turn teams over. They play with tremendous size and activity, and so it's a big challenge. Anytime you go on the road, you have to take care of the ball, and that makes our job especially difficult, given that that's a strength of Marquette in the first place, turning teams over. So we're going to have to be poised. We're going to have to be strong with the basketball, and defensively have to come up with some answers with their front court so that they don't dominate the inside.
Questions for Coach Chris Mack? Hit *1 on your telephone, please.
We'll first go to Shannon Russell with the Cincinnati Enquirer.
Hey, Coach. You've said that Edmund Sumner is very, very close. Do you expect him to play at Marquette?
We'll put Marquette aside and talk about practice today. I fully expect him to go in practice today. 100% of the drills. So as long as he responds today and tomorrow in a way that we hope that he does, then he'll play against Marquette. But that's sort of putting the cart before the horse, Sham. But he has been fully released, and we're excited to join him back, to welcome him back.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next question comes from Joe Giuliano with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Chris, my question also was about Edmund Sumner, and it was answered. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
We'll next go to Paul Gotham with PickandSplinters.com.
Afternoon, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. A non-Big East topic for you, but one that you have great familiarity. Mark Schmidt over at St. Bonaventure. Mark has the Bonnies off to a very good start this year, one of their best in 15, 16 years. He has had sustained success with getting guys that he calls under-the-radar guys. That's not the easiest thing to do. What does that say about Mark and his ability to mine those players?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, he has a keen eye for talent. He doesn't get caught up in rankings. He doesn't get caught up in scouting services. He evaluates with his eyes and his own belief. And he does a tremendous job. Obviously, probably the biggest example would be Andrew Nicholson, but he's had so many players over the years that were recruited in the spring, weren't necessarily, offer guys in the fall for certain schools that fell under the radar that he takes and they have tremendous careers. And it doesn't surprise me one bit the success that the Bonnies are having this year. Ever since he's taken over the program, they've been very, very competitive. I'm happy for him. He's a great friend of mine.
If I could ask a follow-up question. You mentioned Andrew Nicholson. Andrew Nicholson and Yusu Endoy, even a guy like Dion Wright, he's not on their same level, but does Mark get enough credit for his ability to develop those players into professional-ready guys?
No, he doesn't get enough credit, not only for the development of his players, but where he's taken the program to. And, he's already won an Atlantic 10 championship at our expense. He's been a guy that, when he took over, that was a cellar-dwelling program with no real hope on the horizon. And he's completely 180 the program. And just every single night, they're a competitive team. They're always going to be well prepared. They're always going to be well coached. And I don't know if you've ever been to Olean, but it's not the easiest place in the world to recruit. And he's done it with tremendous success. And again, it doesn't surprise me one bit.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next question comes from Steve Pivovar with the Omaha World Herald.
Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, obviously you guys took a pretty good whooping in the conference opener at Villanova.
I wouldn't call it a pretty good welcome.
No whooping.
Oh, yeah, whooping, yeah. That we did.
But obviously teams can respond to that kind of games in certain ways. Can you talk about the way your teams responded since the Villanova game?
Well, I think we've adjusted rather well. We have not maybe done a great job when it comes to handling the ball. Our turnovers ever since Edmond's gone out have increased. But I think the response that our teams had, able to win 3 in a row, be able to pick themselves up off the mat, has been one that hasn't really surprised me. I think we have a resilient group. Sometimes it's easier to handle adversity than it is success. But I've liked our response. Our kids have come every single day to practice, wanting to compete, wanting to get better. And it was a tough blow on a couple ends. The game itself, losing Edmond for that game, and then losing Edmond since that game. But we've responded well, and it's nice to have him back and have our team be whole again. But again, I think sometimes how you handle adversity, both within a game and within the season, really can define your team.
Has there been anybody that stepped up front and center and said, "Hey, we're going to get this thing back on track"?
With their play, I would certainly say yes. Miles Davis assumed starting point guard duties. He's played mostly the 2 all year long. He was a rock at St. John's. Hit big free throws down the stretch, hit a big 3 down the stretch. Then the other night, he really sets the tone against DePaul. His assist turnover ratio on the year is remarkably different than it was last year and even the year before. I think Larry Austin, our backup point guard, has played extremely well in Ed's absence. And then I think we've had some other players that, because of just losing Ed, it doesn't just affect your point guard, it affects other players have opportunities. When an injury happens, it's opportunities for others. And a guy like Kaiser Gates has played well for us, has played more for us, and that bodes well for our entire team. And to get a freshman in the mix in conference play has been really good for our team.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
We'll take one final question for Coach Chris Mack.
That question comes from John Fanta with Big East Digital Network.
Hey, Coach, liked your Powerball tweets a lot. Those were fun.
That was disappointing. I'm getting over it. That's why I called late. Sorry about that.
Sorry about it. Describe the art behind really this 1-3-1 zone that you guys have run really successfully this year. It seems to give every team that you face some problems. Why do you think your group has been able to run it so effectively?
I think we play hard in it. I think sometimes when you hear the word zone defensively, kids feel like they can take a break from playing hard. And I think to our kids' credit, they've continued to play hard in the zone. I've told them that I don't have all the answers. Don't look at me when something happens every time down the floor. I'll give you the answers man to man, but I'm not always going to give it to you in zone. And so they've played with their hair on fire. And I think because of that, it's been pretty successful. And the other part of it is I think the fact that we use it as a curveball and don't necessarily play it for 10, 15 straight possessions. We stick with it when it's working, and it's worked for us this year. And there have been some games where it hasn't been as effective, and fortunately our man-to-man defense has been as good as it's ever been while I've been here.
Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
Chris, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
That concludes our call. I'm sorry we weren't able to bring you Chris Mullen of St. John's today. If you want to, Steve Dombrowski did send me a text. If you want to call him to try to reach Coach Mullen, we appreciate it. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for your interest and thanks for your participation. Have a good day. Appreciate it. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for your interest and thanks for your participation. Have a good day. Appreciate it. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for your interest and thanks for your participation. Have a good day. Appreciate it. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for your interest and thanks for your participation. Have a good day. Appreciate it. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for your interest and thanks for your participation. Have a good day. Appreciate it. We're going to be back in 2 weeks.